and welcome back to another episode of Mompreneurs Making Moves. I'm your host, Amrei Murdoch, and I'm the founder and CEO of Infinite Exec. Again, we're here for you if you are a business owner and you're looking to scale, but you need some administrative and operational support at an elite level, and you need a good wing woman to take you all the way there. Catch all, be all, Jill of all trades, excuse me. You got it. We're here and we're ready to take you to the next level. You can find us at infiniteexec.com. And today you are listening to part 2. So make sure you heard part 1. And if you didn't, just jump in and you're just trying this out. Welcome. Either way, if you've ever tried to answer emails with a toddler pulling at your sleeve, or you've wondered how to grow your business while chasing after your dreams and you're probably your kids, then you're in the right place. So we're going to dive in. We're just going to go straight into part 2. This is part 2 of Why There's No Sexy Without Scaffolding. And I'm joined again by the amazing Nora. She's the founder of Process Makes Perfect. And how are you today, Nora?
I'm doing well. Thank you. When we last recorded, or when we recorded part 1, rather, I realized that Process Makes Perfect isn't officially the name of my business at this point.
Okay.
So, this is, part of being an entrepreneur. And I think we'll talk more about this today, is about like flexibility and testing your offering and being really agile. And that's something that I really have been like practicing what I preach lately, because I set out to call my business Practice Makes Perfect because I really like alliteration. But as I got into it and started talking to people, meeting clients, working with clients, I realized that at this point, like reputation, the trust, the relationship that is so critical to this type of work is very reliant on the personal connection and like on my reputation and like my experience and my personal involvement. So I'm still I still own the domain. I still have a growth plan that will hopefully lead me to eventually like evolve into a different form of the company, or maybe not, who knows? Like I said, trying to stay agile, but like right now I'm just going by my name. I call myself Nora Schlesinger Consulting. This Makes Perfect is in my back pocket for when it makes sense, because, when I scale, when my business looks probably a little bit more like yours, I won't want it to be all about me. But right now it kind of necessarily has to be all about me because I'm still establishing myself, and there's still a lot of my growth has been based on my personal network, my personal experience, my personal involvement, etc. So, yeah,
Yeah, no, I love her.
it's
I love
that's been a learning for me.
Yeah, and no, that makes sense. And here's why. This is something that I've talked about in my business coaching on a platform when I was doing it a few months ago, and that was your personal branding, right?
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
actually the most powerful thing that you have. I mean, you think about these big names like Gary Brecka or Grant Cardone, or like, I don't know, people that are in business and literally they put something on their social media and millions of people are influenced.
Yeah.
And they
Yeah, it's
could
true.
start up businesses from the ground up and sell out in a matter of minutes
Yep.
because of their personal brand.
Yeah.
Branding is huge. And I know we
Yeah.
didn't get on here to talk about that today, but what
No,
you're
it's so important though, as an entrepreneur and a small
yeah,
business owner.
and
I will
that
say
will
that I
never go
don't
out of style.
exactly.
Yeah, but sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say it's funny because my gut reaction is like, it's not my personal brand. I always react to sort of like limiting it to the scope of like personal brand, because I think what's really underlying personal brand is ultimately trust and relationship building. So that's kind of how I've been thinking about it. Neither is right or wrong, neither descriptor. But I think that a lot of people who set out to create a personal brand thinking like, oh, if people just know my name, I can sell out my e-course or whatever. It's not really about like awareness. It's about taking it that step further and about the trust and whatnot. And that's, I think, what I have learned through, I probably always on some level knew that, but that's what really has been reinforced through this experience so far, has been that like I thought that having a shiny brand would be really important to like building trust. But actually it was like the inverse. It was that personal connection, getting to know me, or in a lot of cases, my clients have been referred through my personal networks or my professional networks. But I mean, my like networks
Right.
based on work I've done in the past, people, like personal friends, even like old college friend. I mean, you name it. But almost everybody that I'm working with right now, I have a connection to. So my individual, my presence as an individual mattered more on some level than my shiny brand. You know what I mean? And so
Yes.
that's why I sort of, I don't want to say like abandoned process makes perfect, but why I pivoted from my initial plan, because it turns out that the trust underlying the brand is more important than the polished brand itself.
No, that is
So
so good. That is so good because
it's been a really interesting experience so
no,
far.
and that's a good point. You brought up a good point though. When we're talking about personal brand, just because your name's on a company doesn't mean it's your personal brand, right?
That's true. Yes,
Yeah,
right.
like, that's a good point.
That's a great distinction to call out.
That is a good point.
It's not, I think like brand is something that people think is so surface level until you really get into brand building, which like I know we're not here to talk about marketing, but brand building is a whole other discipline, and it has so much more to do with building trust, consistency, people knowing what to expect. I mean, all of this is like an offshoot of trust, but that relationship building piece of brand building is so critical. You can't just, launch a shiny brand with a cool logo and like put it everywhere and expect that people will buy from you, because you're missing this like really critical component. And so that's what I like didn't do. But that's why I didn't do process makes perfect, because I was like, there's no trust in that brand, but there is trust in me as an individual, because so many of my clients or prospective clients know me through like know me. They don't know process makes perfect. They're not coming to me because they like my logo. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's a piece that really came like bubbled to the top of the brand building and broadly like the entrepreneurial experience for me in my recent building, like as I have built this brand for myself. That was very circular logic, but you know what I mean?
No, yes, I'm following. Just to wrap up this thought, because I know we wanted to hit specifics today, but this is
Yes, right. I
good.
know this is not what we plan to talk about
I
today.
know, but this is good. This is really valuable. It's really helpful. When we're talking about brand, the shiny brand versus knowing what your client needs and relationship
Yeah.
building. So, in
Yeah.
that context, what you're talking about is literally still the bread and butter of my current business, which is my
Absolutely.
bread and butter for financially at this point. And that
Yeah.
is the relationships that I build with each client, even if they're working with my team and just
Mhm.
my team. I
Mhm.
still it comes back to me cultivating that relationship with the client from
Sure.
me,
Yeah.
giving them my word and you know, I vetted my team. I
Yeah.
have the top strategies. We are always, constantly growing. We've got what you need. It's my word. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's not that I have
Absolutely.
this shiny logo and that I have this
Absolutely.
great
Yeah.
business. It's me. And technically, even if I was at this huge space where this was global and they didn't get to talk with me because I was so up here all of a sudden. Even if people who have those businesses, it was built off of the trust that they have with the person who's still taking them on.
Mhm.
It's their connection,
Mhm.
even if they don't get to
Yeah.
connect directly. You know what I'm saying? Like when
Yeah.
we talk brands, there's some type of connection that we have with some other relatable human part of us, if that makes
Yep.
sense. I don't know how to
Totally.
answer the best way,
No,
but
I know what you're saying. It's sort of like that's why when you switch project managers or you switch or like the contact person on the client side switches, that's why the project is suddenly at risk. It's not like you're suddenly doing bad, worse work, but you've lost that essential relationship where the trust is, where the communication is, where the like understanding of one another and one another's needs. And it's not just needs that can be documented, like, oh, they get, 5 deliverables a week or whatever, how people work, what people expect, their communication style, their even like little things like how you frame like data. I used to, when I was a I was a brand strategy consultant for 6 years, and we had one client who we knew this is, like, terrible, but, like, he was, like, the brand manager, but he did not know how to read charts, like graphs. And so we knew we had to present data in different ways, like simpler charts, color coded. We just had to like keep the data within a certain like difficulty rate. I mean, it's terrible. I'm painting him to be an idiot, and he was not. This was just not
No.
his strength.
Right. Right.
And that's not something that like was in a scope of work or was in like a training document or was even anywhere in any of the like I don't think anybody looking at the decks we had made from him for this client, team would have known that like these graphs are made this way because the brand manager
Yes.
gets kind of too caught up by the other types of charts. I'm being deliberately vague so I don't like
Yes.
give away any
Yes.
NDA information, but it's that kind of thing that is like
Mm.
it's such a small thing, but it's not. It's such a overlooked thing, but it's not really a small thing in terms of the client relationship, the retention, the ultimately the success of that account, in terms of like the business. So anyway, we're getting deeper into the topic that we said.
Yes. No, I know. I know. Okay,
No,
we're
I
gonna.
love this though. This turned into such an interesting conversation.
I think it's needed too because even now I'm tempted with my current business to like I rebranded. So I
Uh-huh.
started out as Eagles Wings Virtual Services,
Uh-huh.
mainly just virtual assistants, and then
Uh-huh.
rebranded earlier this year to be Infinite Exec,
Right.
which becomes your exec with infinite solutions. Because I
Yeah.
wanted
Love
it to
that.
be clear what we do,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
Eagles Wings is not clear. I mean, for all I know, you work at a zoo, but Infinite
Yeah,
Exec
that's true. Yeah.
Infinite Exec is like, okay, executive, and you start thinking
Mhm.
higher business
Yeah.
level, which is the
Yeah.
whole point, right?
Yeah, it's
And then
very
I wanted to
evocative too of like as an executive you need to clone yourself and like be infinitely available.
yeah, I love
That's
that.
how I interpret it anyway.
No, that's great. I love that. That's very helpful feedback as
Yeah.
well. But yeah, and so we rebranded, but I didn't spend a ton. Like I think I spent $200 on the logo
Yep.
with this logo company, and then I just launched it because I had to keep going.
Right.
But we were
Right.
doing elevated service, and I was trying
Mhm.
to niche out in this overcrowded virtual assistant market.
Mhm.
You know, I wanted to be higher level. I didn't want to be like, okay, I'm a virtual assistant, work with me. No, it's
Yeah.
like we're all North American based. We've worked with big companies like Apple, eBay, Google. Some of us have experience with C-suite executives for decades, like some major niching that really sets
Right.
us apart because that's the only way you
Right.
keep going. And so,
Right.
but
For
in
sure.
that, I think I've been kind of caught up. I started to almost get stuck in the weeds of branding. Like, I need to make it more shiny. I need to make,
Mhm.
and it's like, no, intentional messaging is always in, sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
but don't get stuck on the like, okay, should it be this dot or that dot, right?
Right.
Tiny or little
Right.
ruler on the low. It's like,
Right.
no, no.
No one cares. No one will notice but you.
Right. Right.
And the other thing is like this was the thought process that I went through when I was like, do I want to brand it now or do I want to use my name for now? I was thinking about the implications of a future rebrand, much like you went through. And I realized that if I do my job right, it won't matter. Meaning like I'm sure you sent out an email when you rebranded informing all
Yes.
your clients like
Yes.
we were A, now we're B, but the email came from you.
Mm.
Like, they knew your name and therefore opened the email and they're like, "Yeah, okay, what," like, I mean, not whatever, not like
Right.
they were
Right.
dismissive of it, but they were kind of like, "This doesn't affect my perception of the quality of work that I'm getting from this company
Mm.
because I know that the, sort of inputs are the same." And so that's how I thought through it. I was like, "Well, right now, as a solopreneur, just starting out, just establishing myself, what is going to be most important?" And I actually kind of weirdly did this retroactively because I had no idea like
Mm.
what the demand was for this service. I knew that it was necessary, but I
Yes.
didn't know how much education I would have to do before people recognized that it was going to be valuable to them. So I did some like market testing sort of. I mean, that makes it sound more sophisticated than it was, but I basically put this announcement out to my personal network on Facebook and on LinkedIn and said like, "Hey, I'm doing this work now,
Yes.
here's a little bit of context on like what got me here, but I'm doing this work. Here's how it like can benefit people, or here's who it's for.
Yes.
I built myself a website. I happen to already own the domain noraslessinger.com. And so I was
Mm.
like, I'll just use that. Like, I just
Yeah.
wanted to get it going. And then
Yes.
I was like, really, truly didn't expect it to be that successful at first. I thought I would have to build momentum
Yeah.
a lot more intentionally. And then it turned out that there was a lot of demand within my personal network, or like second degree within my personal network. Like I got a lot of referrals and stuff right out of the gate.
Wow.
And then I realized that's what really, I was sort of like, okay, I'm certainly not going to turn down a client. So I'll start working with them, and then I'll like keep working on this other website, like the air quotes real name and real website. And then I kind of realized like I got so much feedback about my personal experience, like, oh, you've run an agency. Oh, you went through a sale acquisition, stuff that was very specific to my experience. And people were articulating that as like a value add, or
Mm.
like why they trusted me, or why they wanted to work with me. And so I kind of had to stop and be like, okay, so clearly it is necessary for me to stay, like, this is like a stupid way to put it, like name forward, like identity forward, as opposed to trying to like I realized I was a brand and I didn't, without intentionally like building a personal brand, like this was my personal brand. But
Yeah.
there's no brand identity or trust behind Process Makes Perfect yet. And I could either work with the clients who wanted to work with me, or I could spend time building trust
Mm.
behind this Process Makes Perfect brand. So I figured, you know what? I'm just gonna like, I really, like, I wasn't as dismissive as I'm making it sound. I really did think through like, okay, what could this look like? Like, will there be there was, I personally, I felt there was a detriment to switching from my personal brand to like a capital B brand, like the Process Makes Perfect brand. I felt that that was detrimental now, potentially. So I really put a lot of thought into like, okay, is it going to be detrimental later? If so, will it be more detrimental than it is now? And I decided it's really not going to be detrimental later. And I have like parameters in my head, because like I'm very systems oriented. I have these like sort of parameters in my head of like what will trigger the switch, the
Yeah.
brand
Yeah.
switch. And that will look like expanding our offerings, or potentially like both expanding and narrowing, like sort of siling them more, and also having people working for me in a capacity that will kind of remove me from some of the face-to-face like client
Yeah.
work.
Yeah.
So that was my main motivation, that like when it's no longer like me doing the consulting all the time, then I'll need to reframe the
Yes.
service, or like the brand of the service. So that was actually a really, like, I gave that a lot of serious consideration on, is it better now? Is it better later? What does it look like later? What does it look like now? What are the implications? What would the consequences be? So
Yeah. No,
that's probably a whole other podcast episode
it is. Yeah, I mean, I'm almost
on
like, you need
branding.
parts, 4 parts, like, do I hear
Yeah,
3?
right.
Honestly, this is
Sounds
just
like it. Sounds like it.
yeah, I mean, because it's so helpful, and people
Yeah.
who are
There's so
interested
much to it.
yeah, and people who are
Yeah.
interested in living the entrepreneur life, like, these are things you have to be aware of and think about.
Mhm.
Like, if someone told me, "Hey, look, I know you wanted to start a business when you were little, and now you're" and I don't know if I told you that story, but yeah, "I know you wanna start a business when you were
You
little."
didn't, but I identify with that. Like
Hey,
I connect with that experience as
yeah,
well. I had
I
the
love
same
that. I love
experience.
that. Man,
I bet a
yeah,
lot
see,
of
we have
us
so much to
did.
talk about. So,
Yeah.
anyways, okay. Uh, so yeah, I know you
We'll
wanna
start a
start a
whole other
business.
podcast, just the two of us.
I mean, I would totally do it. I would totally do it.
I
I would go
mean,
back to this one and say, "This is where it
seems like,
was born."
yeah,
And yeah, you know what? I really
sounds like
would.
we have enough to talk about.
It's true. It's true. And people would listen because the
Yeah.
like, yeah, because when you're getting into the entrepreneurial world, there are things that you're not aware of. It's just like
Yes.
when I was a teacher for a few years before I became an entrepreneur, I thought I was going to be
Mm.
a teacher for a while. And then I got burnt out hard. And I
Mhm.
realized that was not my forever. And then I turned to entrepreneurship last minute with my back against the wall and decided to make it work. And, you think it's one of those stories like, oh, well, you just had your back against the wall. You did it. You turned it around and now you're here with an agency. No, it wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a rags to riches story, like where you feel
Yeah.
excited and happy. It was like every day you're wondering, am I going to make ends meet? Thank God I could live with my mom at that time. Otherwise, I would not have afforded rent.
Right.
Things that you like, real talk.
Right.
And yeah, now I can pay my own rent, obviously, and things like that. But
Yeah.
there was a time where it was just build, build, grind, grind, grind. Oh, I didn't know that this
Yeah.
came with business. I didn't know that I had to
Yeah.
think about that. Wait,
Yeah.
taxes and people, team,
Yeah.
clients. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, what am I doing?
Contracts, legal,
Yeah.
like all that
Yeah.
stuff, yeah. And you learn
Exactly.
a lot of it by making those mistakes,
Mm.
and I like to talk about this stuff because I hope that I can save someone else from making the same mistake, Possibly not, probably not, but I think that these conversations are so important because there's this myth that you can just if you have a good enough idea, you can be an overnight success. And there's a saying that says like overnight success takes decades to achieve. I think about that a lot. Like when I look back, I kind of think about like you mentioned, you were starting business or you were interested in starting businesses as a kid. Like when I was thinking through like how do I present myself as like qualified for this consulting work, I thought back to like when I was a kid, both my parents were small business owners and entrepreneurs. And I used to help my parents with what is effectively like the operations for their company. I would help my dad with billing. This was like in the 90s and there were no like electronic billing, like now like nobody does like manual billing, but I would literally like set up a like assembly line and do his billing for him, like like putting the right things in the right envelopes and stamping them and whatever. Like it was like a multi-step process, and I was like 7, like doing not like in an
Right.
inappropriate way, but like it was just that's what we did,
Yeah.
as like a family that my dad was running a business. Like I helped my mom with like filing and organizing her like stuff and I just have done this my whole life. And like obviously now I do it on a more complex level. Like I'm not helping my clients like file things. Not that I mean that's important work too.
Right.
But I think back to like on the one hand, yes, this consulting thing has been more quickly successful than I anticipated. On the other hand, I have spent my entire life working toward this. Not that, like this company isn't going to like be Fortune 500 or like I'm not going to make $1 billion on it, but
You
like
never know.
it's just this is what I wanted to be successful at. And like was it overnight or was it decades in the making? I don't I
Yeah.
think it's both. Well,
Yeah.
I don't think it was overnight at all. But like it may like a lot, my mom's like, "You have how many clients?" Like
Mm.
she was like, "Well, in
Mm.
6 months we'll see if it works."
Yeah.
And like I was like, "Well, it's been like 2 months and it's working pretty well
Mm.
so far."
Yeah.
So like I think to some it might look like I just did it and it worked and how easy was that? But I'm like, "Well, okay.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. I'm
Yeah.
just gonna walk away from that conversation
Yeah.
because,
I know
you
that's
know,
it. I love that. Yeah.
but,
And I
entrepreneurs
am
need to know that if they're struggling after like a month, my goodness, that's normal. If they're struggling after years, that's normal. Not struggling, but if it's
right, right, right.
if it's still hard and if it's not glamorous, it's probably never going to be. Like that's just the realities.
And even when you're at the highest level you can think of, like I work with billionaires, and when you're at the highest level and they're launching these things, it is nothing but chaotic for a second. And I mean chaotic, not like a
Yeah.
little like, oh, that was a little, I'm
Yeah.
talking like, whoa, this is
Yeah.
rough. But
Yeah.
they get out there, they get it done like
Right?
any regular entrepreneur does. Like you said, you just do it. Like
Right. You
you're
just
not
do it.
waiting, you're not waiting for
Yeah.
the perfect conditions. You just get
Yep.
in and you get it done. Like it's
Totally.
time. You launch, you figure everything out
Totally.
later. And
Yeah.
so and that's even with people like us who are process oriented. It's like,
Mhm.
well, there's a certain degree that if you're going to stay in the entrepreneur game, you just got to do it. and then you will figure it out as you go, even if it's not your first preference, because it's never my first preference.
Right.
But it's just so nice
Totally.
to be being an entrepreneur. And so, but even at those levels, it can be like bumpy and you're trying to figure a lot out and a lot of moving and grooving.
Yeah.
And it's never just this straight like path and you just walk on it, a red carpet model, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, get it out. Like,
Yeah.
no, even at the highest level, I mean, there's this
Yeah.
process and chaotic and
Yeah.
it's a lot. So
Yeah.
yeah, so it definitely doesn't go away. Okay. I know we're almost 30 minutes in and we didn't even touch.
I know. No, let's get into it. Let's get into it real quick.
I'm so sorry. Okay.
That's okay. This is
Um
great.
all right. So let's do what I call rapid fire. Okay. So
Sure.
I'm gonna
Yeah.
throw the
Love
question
it.
out and you're just gonna go straight into it. Keep it short, keep it punchy, and we go straight to the next one.
Well, I better go find someone else to answer. No, I will do my best.
Okay,
You
do
know
your
I'm not
best to
good at concise
try.
answers, but I'm going to do it. It's
Think
my
of it
challenge
like
for today.
think of it like we're doing a reel, if you will,
Okay.
even for social media.
Okay.
And I'm like,
Yeah.
here, and you're like here, and then
Okay.
done, and we move on. Okay. All right. What does it take to be an agency owner? Go.
Flexibility, humility. I think being aware of industry trends, but being willing to defy them or like not follow, go your own path. Like treating your people well, because agency culture can be extremely toxic, and it like by default usually is. And there's so much turnover in agency, and agency overheads are typically so high, and there's just so much wasted money, and that puts so much pressure on the bottom line and all that. So like treat your people well.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect.
I'm going to zip it now. Let's go on to the next one.
You're doing great. You're doing great. How do you scale your business to sell it?
Well, that depends on the business. I don't think there's an easy answer, but the advice that I would give someone who is looking to sell is it's not going to be quick. We're not talking about like a year. Build smart and sustainably. Even if you intend to exit, the value in the business is in the sustainability of the business, because no one wants to buy a business that the bottom's going to fall out in like 18 months. Make sure that your financial documents are completely spick and span clean. There should be no confusion. There should be nothing missing. Everything should be tracked properly. You should have the right, like bookkeeping should be clean. You should have P&Ls for every month and every year. And your balance sheet should be organized. Like that kind of stuff matters, because one thing that I didn't know, I mean, it wasn't a big deal, but like one thing to know going into M&A is that you will be asked to hand over at least 3 years of financial documents. So they look back. You can't hide anything. You really shouldn't have anything to hide,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
if you do, fix it now, because you can't hide things. So that means like be careful about your spending. Like don't put all your like personal expenses on your corporate credit card. Don't put your gym membership on it. Don't,
Mm.
that kind of thing is accounted for in like the valuation. They'll deduct those expenses and like as though they're not there. They do have process for that, but like you want your company to look as solid and professionally managed as possible. And this goes doubly so if you intend to stay on. And most deals, unless you're selling some like software that like can stand on its own, most deals, especially like if you're an agency and it's very like people forward, service forward, they will want you as the leader to stay on for some period of time. It could be like 6 months, it could be 12 months, it could be indefinite. So, and make sure your people are happy and well taken care of. Because again, if you're a service business, it all comes down to your people. That's gonna be my answer to everything.
Yeah.
Just to assume that's my number one thing is take care of your people.
Yeah. And as it should be. For the mompreneur who feels stuck in the weeds and can't yet afford big support, what's one practical system she can implement today?
Learn Zapier, which is an automation tool. I cannot tell you how many things are these like, or should be. If they're not, you should make them like very structured, standardized, repetitive tasks. So maybe not Zapier if that's too complicated. Like it does take some time to learn, but like almost every software has automation and AI built into it now. And if it doesn't, that's a red flag. I mean, I'm sure there are some exceptions, but like if you're using an accounting software that doesn't have any kind of automation, that's a red flag. The other thing you can do is sort of the flip side is if you have things that are too bespoke, like every time you do it, it has to be customized, really get into like really be honest with yourself and maybe even bring somebody in to assess this with you. What can be standardized? Because like this is what I work on with a lot of my clients where they'll be like, well, this is the process, except for this client, we do it this way, and this client, we do that. And like every single client has a custom process for something. Some things do have to be custom, obviously. But for things that can be customized, it should be custom, or I'm sorry, standardized is what I meant to say.
Yes.
If something should be standardized and it's not like a client, client deliverables, obviously customized, but the way you create client deliverables can typically be somewhat standardized. There should be
Hmm.
a process, there should be accountability. I get most of my clients onto a project management system so that there's a record and accountability. And also, they're forced to standardize because they have to write everything down. They have to say, this comes first, then this comes next. You can do that and you should do that even if it's just you. Like I do that for my business and it is just me. I don't have a VA, I don't have contract, I don't have anybody yet. That helps me keep all the balls in the air. That gets all the mental load out of my brain and that allows me to focus on the work that I have to do without going like, as a mom and like a working mom, that you sit down to do one thing in 4 seconds and you're like, I have to do this, I have to do that, I have to do that. You just can't focus. If you can't outsource to a person, which is expensive, outsource to automation, outsource to AI. I use ChatGPT 750 times a day. Everything you can not do personally from start to finish, outsource it to a robot, so that you can put your, I love a robot, like you bring certain things to the table, to the
Yeah.
business
Yeah.
table that cannot be duplicated by another person or by technology. That's what you should be doing with your time. Everything else is why you're feeling overwhelmed. So everything else should be as outsourced as it can be. And again, not necessarily to a person. It can be automation. It can be like, so for example, in QuickBooks, switch to automatic billing, get your people, or like I use a tool called Bonsai. I track my time. It's like my CRM.
Hmm.
Um, at the end of the month, I track all my time. I just click one button, it generates an invoice, and I go, okay, send. So,
Hmm.
like, yes, I have to go in and manually do it, but I'm not like, I know a lot of people who are still making like manual invoices in Excel, and I'm just like, that's crazy. So,
Yeah.
template things, standardize things, automate things, use AI to do whatever you can use, solve problems, research, answer
Yes.
questions, everything you can possibly get off your mental plate, do it. And there's a
Yeah.
lot of free and low cost ways to do it. You don't have to like hire an admin if you don't have that money, which a lot of us don't, like I'm sympathetic to that. Budgets are budgets. So the last thing I'll say is be really judicious about what is necessary and what is extra. So in addition to like automating, outsourcing, etc., don't be afraid to just like eliminate things. If you're doing too much, stop doing it. You know what I mean? Like if you're I don't know, I can't think of a specific example, but there are things you may be doing for a client that the client does not care about.
Hmm.
Or I worked with a client who was saying they were wasting so much time getting new, this was like a healthcare practice. They were wasting so much time getting patients onboarded. And we kind of went through the process and I was like, okay, what do you use that like you collect A, B, C, and D. Like what do you use A for? What do you use B for? And so on. And it turned out that they were like the biggest bottleneck in getting patients onboarded and getting all their stuff set up before their first appointment. And the issue was when they couldn't get this set up before the first appointment, they had to cancel the appointment and then like try to reschedule, and like they were losing patients that way. So we got to this point that was like the biggest bottleneck was collecting their license. But it turned out that they only needed their license in like, I'm making this up, but like 5% of patients. They actually needed to have their license or whatever it was. I can't
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
Like, let's say it was a driver's license on file. And so I said, "Well, why do you do this for everyone then?" And she basically said, like, "'Cause we've always done it." And I'm like, "Well, that's not a good enough excuse." So we
Yeah.
eliminated that step. It saved so much time. It all but removed like the problem that she was having. And then she just would collect the license or like whatever the documentation was later in the process if and when she needed it. And that was easy because if and when she needed it, the patient would be like sitting in front of her or
Yeah.
on the phone or whatever it was. So like it turned out to be way easier to collect and she only needed to collect it, let's say 5% of the time. So that's, I mean, that's a somewhat extreme example, but there are things you don't need to be doing or you can be doing less of or differently
Yes.
than the amount of effort you're putting into it.
Yeah.
I obviously don't mean skimping on client work.
Right. Right.
Like
Right. No. No.
quality is not questioned.
Yes.
um
No, that makes complete sense. And I've already got the first episode for our podcast. Why you are your biggest bottleneck in your business.
I mean, that's why I have a job, honestly, is because entrepreneurs are the biggest bottleneck in their business. And that is so normal. Like, I
Mm,
don't mean that as any sort of criticism or
right.
to imply
Right.
anyone is doing anything wrong. That is so normal.
Mm,
But there is a point where if you want to grow, you have to, for lack of a nicer way of putting it, like get out of the way, you
yeah.
know?
Yeah.
And I've been there
Yeah.
100%. Everyone has.
Yeah.
No one is good at this until you learn, like, through trial by fire.
And I would even say no one is good at this until you realize you're not good at this.
That too.
And that you
That's the
need.
humility piece about
Yes.
running an agency or any business.
Right. Yeah. And then
Being
you
willing to
need to leverage what you can, which is what you're talking
Mhm,
about with the robots.
mhm,
And then
mhm, mhm,
also all these other things like trust your team, value your people, get out of your own
mhm.
way, all those things
Yeah,
that we're talking about, which is why
yeah,
these conversations are so valuable.
yeah,
I have to wrap it up, but I don't want to.
yeah.
But this
We'll
is,
do a part 3 sometime.
yeah, this has been lovely. Thank
Yeah,
you
this is
so, so
great.
much
Thanks for
for
having me
sharing.
back.
Yours
It's an
is,
honor to be asked back.
oh no, and you're obviously the first one I've asked back so quickly, but this is
I love
so
it.
valuable because people who are
Good,
thinking
good.
about this world, they need to know these things. And if I had someone who sat me down and said, just so you know, you need to be aware that XYZ. I mean, that would have
Yeah,
saved me a lot of time. And then
yeah.
things that I thought that I was the only one, right?
That's so huge. I hear that from get these emails from my clients or like we'll be on the phone and they'll be like, "Is this normal?" Like I get this question like, "Is this okay? Is this normal?" all the time because
Yeah.
I think and that adds so much more stress to an already stressful situation. So, whatever you're going through, it's probably normal. I mean, unless it's like really extreme in which case like hire
Yeah.
someone to help you.
Well,
But
folks, you heard it here first. Okay. Nora and I's podcast. I don't know if we're doing it, but if we are, it's going to be called
our
Is This?
podcast is going to be called It's Totally Normal.
Yeah. Yeah. It's totally normal
Yeah.
because there are things in this culture as an entrepreneur that we all struggle with or experience, or you might be on your way to experiencing.
Yeah.
And we'll just give you a heads up on what that might be.
Yeah.
No, I love
So
it.
many things.
Thank you. Thank you again.
Yeah.
And for those of you who are listening, definitely connect again. Connect with Nora on LinkedIn. And then we'll have any other social links linked below. And thanks so much again for hanging out with us on part 2. To answer the question really quick, Nora, why is there no sexy without scaffolding?
Because you don't get to do the good parts of the job unless the bit or like the fun, sexy parts of the job unless the business is built strongly. I really
Built
petered
to
out on that
last.
one.
Built to
But
last, right?
built to last. Yeah. I mean, you like you were talking about earlier, the not just early days, like the many of the days of running a small business or any business are very unglamorous. And you only really get the glamorous parts like a little bit of the time. I think that as your company grows, you get a slightly larger proportion of your time is like what someone would call glamorous. You're still working really hard, but you don't ever get to that point until you have built a solid business that can sustain all the things that are required for you to have the glamorous leadership moments. You don't get like the fancy lunches and the private jet. I mean, like none of us are going to be on a private jet, I assume, anytime soon, but like stereotypically speaking, like you're not getting on that private jet until you have just been grinding for years and you can't build a business big enough for the private jet moment without building the operational scaffolding, which is what I call the systems and the standardization and the process and the education and the training and the onboarding and the hiring process that gets you great people, and then taking care of those people and then teaching them how to serve the clients well, and like all those things.
Yeah.
So that's what the scaffolding is.
Yes.
May you all get your private jet moments. I'd love one too if they're like up for grabs.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I love it. I love this so much. This is so good, man. And for those of you listening, thanks for hanging out again with us on Mompreneurs Making Moves. And if you did find anything that stood out to you that really resonated or that helped you, again, just feel seen or heard, definitely we'd love for you to subscribe. Share this with your other mompreneur peeps. And remember that every small step you take in your business and in your life matters. And you are absolutely not alone on this journey. So keep showing up, keep making moves, and don't forget to take care of yourself too. Make sure to follow us at
Here.
Mompreneurs Making Moves on Instagram and Facebook. And you can watch the official interview on our YouTube channel at Mompreneurs Making Moves Official. All right. Thank you again, Nora.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
you.
me.